Welcome to the sound of the start of your weekend. The NTT20 betting show sponsored by AK Bets. Yes, it's a skinny docket this weekend, but our best bets are chunky at 5-2 and 17-10. We've got long shots at 11-1 and 6-1. We've also got a season-long bet to add to our agenda, an updated one at 20-1 and plenty more as well. This show is me, Ali Maxwell, and him, George Elek, making betting picks ahead of the EFL weekend. It is very strictly for over 18s only, and we ask that everyone listening or watching on YouTube be gamble aware and understand the risks that come with gambling. Last week, not great. You got your next best, Sheffield United up at a very, very cosy winner at 19-20. But everyone else let you down. That's Bolton, that's Finn Azaz, that's Northampton. And for me, it was a very deflating, chastening, humbling -5. More so than normal -5s, because I was really excited for my picks.
Happens.
And I was out for a long lunch with my wife and I wasn't checking the scores. So I had the 5 p.m. reveal of all the scores. And as I went down the docket, I got sadder and sadder. So let's put it right this weekend. A couple of games in League One, quite a few more in League Two. Where are you going for your best bet?
I'm backing two teams this week, neither of which I'm particularly positive on. And it wouldn't surprise me if both of them are embroiled in relegation battles at the end of the season. But on a pure price perspective, I think both are mispriced. And the first is Newport County to beat Harrogate away from home, and they're 5-2 to do so. Harrogate being even money, in my mind, is pretty crazy. I understand that their results so far have been okay. We've seen them beat two teams at home this season in Doncaster and Bradford, who I think we can all agree are good sides. However, when you look at the underlying numbers so far in League Two, they are bottom for expected goals ratio. So their underlying metrics are not particularly good. Part of that might be driven by the fact that they led against two very good teams in those two home games. But when you look at the kind of the detail of those two games, they were kind of relatively low margin, not many chances created by either side where Harrogate edged ahead. But their defensive numbers are really alarming. And from a defensive point of view, as MK Dons found out, if you can kind of rack up a score against them pretty quickly. And most concerningly for me about Harrogate is that their home expected goals ratio is by far, again, the lowest in the league. And what we've got here are two teams in Harrogate and Newport who I think are both rated pretty poorly despite okay point tools. Newport are certainly a team right now where I would say they're in a massively false position and will, looking at the league table as it stands now, they will drop. They're currently 10th. I'd be flabbergasted if they finish in the top 10, but that doesn't mean that they can't pick up a point on a result on Saturday, where again they have picked up some impressive results already this season, and even in midweek where they went to Bradford, a decent side, and up until the last 10 minutes or so they kind of matched them, and they equalised late on to make it 1-1, and that was fair, on a fair reflection of the game thus far, before Bradford scored twice late on to get the win. They're yet to draw a game this season. They've won 5, and of their 5 wins, 2 have come against the two poorest teams in the league. When they went to Morecambe, they won 1-0. They hosted Accrington and they won 3-1. And even though they've lost to Cheltenham and Swindon on their travels already, in my mind, this is just a game between two pretty poor sides by League One, by League Two standard, where the home team, despite two good results at home, the underlying numbers suggest that their home advantage is pretty negligible. And I think for there to be the discrepancy of even money to 5-2 between the two of them, especially given Harrogate's clear struggles defensively, and Newport have scored in all but 2 games this season, and have scored 3 goals 3 times. I'd have these two way closer together. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I think Newport should be favourites for this game or anything like that. But to my mind, this is a bit of a coin toss where we are getting 5-2 about it being heads.
2-2 for big Kyle Hudlin.
Every day he's...
Yes. Hudlin.
There you go.
Bradford to beat Tranmere 17-10 is my nap. Pick and price is pretty much here. It's quite an interesting game from a betting point of view. I'm with Bradford City for sure. Watched them beat Newport 3-1 on Monday night. As you referenced, they didn't have it easy, and it was 2 late goals that saw them pull clear in that game. However, I thought there were some quite encouraging signs that make me think that Bradford's poor run before that game, which saw them go 4 without a win, could be behind them, and they can start accumulating points at a slightly higher lick. I mean, they're on 15 points from 10 games. It's a fine start. It's not amazing, but it's certainly not terrible. And the context of that winless run was injury-led, really. Like, they were missing however many centre-backs, however many central midfielders, so much so that they signed Paul Huntington and Corey Evans on free transfers just to bolster out the squad. But it didn't look too bad by the time Monday night rolled along. They were able to go back to the formation that Alexander recruited for, having had to move away for injury purposes. And it's a system that I really like. I think it works quite well at this level, and I think Bradford have pretty good players in all areas of the pitch to make it work. So they've got their 3 at the back. It was Diabate, Byrne and Shepherd. Byrne and Shepherd in particular, both pretty comfortable on the ball and have decent passing range. That's quite important for this system. Diabate less so. Richie Smallwood sits in front of that. So you basically have almost like a diamond when it comes to the build-up from the back. You've got the 3 defenders, and the wide centre-backs do go quite wide in possession. And then you've got Byrne and Smallwood, Smallwood just in front and Byrne dropping a little bit deeper. I quite like that as an option for them in build-up. And I think in Byrne and Smallwood, they have players who can play, as they did on Monday night, a lot of long passes, diagonal passes in particular, out to the wing-backs. Now, Newport were playing a back 4, and because Bradford's system also has 2 strikers, Andy Cook +1, and 2 number 8s who are quite attack-minded in their outlook. One Walker, one Clark O'Dore. It felt really weird that they kept being able to make these long passes out wide, and I thought to myself, why aren't Newport doing more to stop the wing-backs being able to receive these passes? Well, the answer is, if you're playing a back 4 in particular, you have to stay quite narrow, because with 2 strikers and 2 number 8s who can pick up awkward pockets of space between the fullback and the centre-back, you can't really afford for those gaps to be exploited. So what's the kind of best of the worst case scenarios? It's balls out wide to the fullback, or the wing-backs as it was, and then you try and handle it from there. But I was quite impressed with how Bradford were able to build up, and I think they could get more in other games by playing more, through the middle a little bit more if teams allow them to do that. So the wing-backs, Wright and Ben, had good games. You've got Cook, who I think is just fantastic at this level, and this style that I just think works quite well for Bradford. I think it makes them quite hard to defend against, because they've got different avenues of attack, and decent forward options to bring off the bench, as we saw with Poynton, who came on and kind of won them that game with a goal and an assist. Smith, Oliver, Sanderson, if he's in the squad. I'm very pro Bradford over the next month or two, I think. As for Tranmere, I'm not a big fan of how they've started the season. 2 wins, 5 draws, 2 defeats. They've only scored 5 goals in 9 games, Tranmere, and they have only conceded 9, so really low scoring stuff. But if you look at the XG numbers, they've lost the XG battle fairly significantly in 5 of their 9 games, just over half. In 3 of 9, it's been pretty even, pretty balanced, and they've won the XG battle noticeably in 1 game, which was a 0-0 against Salford. So I'm pretty pro Bradford. They've been decent on their travels for a few years now. Last year, 3rd best in League 2 away from home. The year before that, 5th best. Results not great this season, but I think they do travel pretty well. And most importantly, we've got a superpower on our side. Andy Cook playing against a former club. Loves it.
Does he?
Absolutely loves it. 17-10 for Bradford to win at Tranmere. That's my best bet of the weekend. Next.
Yeah, same price for my next best, 17-10. Should mention AK Bet's best price in the market on our NAPs and best price in the market on our next bests as well. So make sure you do back these with them in order to maximise your returns, hopefully returns. I'm backing Cheltenham Town to beat Swindon Town at 17-10. Again, Cheltenham aside that I've backed for relegation that I haven't been particularly impressed with so far, and Swindon, it should be said, are one of these teams whose underlying numbers are definitely better than their league table, their league position suggests. But there's enough for me to wonder why Cheltenham aren't fairly significant favourites at home to a side who are struggling the way that Swindon are, and they're basically picking prices as it stands right now. I think with Cheltenham, we're going to learn a lot about them in the next few weeks, because so far their fixtures have been really, really tough. But that changes now with this home game against Swindon, and then travel to Colchester. They've got Carlisle and Bromley coming up as well. So I think we're going to learn what is the real Cheltenham Town and what can we expect from them. What we should say is that so far this season, they've won 3 games at home. Those have come against Accrington Stanley, who, as you say, only got their first win of the season last weekend, Harrogate and Newport, the 2 teams that I just discussed a second ago, neither of whom I think are particularly great shakes. So 3 home games against 3 poor sides, and they've won all 3. Yes, they've only got 1 point from the other games, but when you consider those are against Walsall, Barrow, Fleetwood, AFC Wimbledon, Chesterfield, Salford and Grimsby, I don't know how many points you'd have factored them in for. I would say only the Salford and Grimsby games are a couple where you would say those are games that fans would realistically expect something from. And they were both away from home, and they lost both by a solitary goal. They've only lost 1 game by more than 1 goal as well, despite having this difficult fixture list. So I'm basically willing to take a chance that maybe our pre-season pessimism, despite it currently looking pretty good, maybe that was wrong. And maybe they're better than their bare form suggests. Up against a Swindon side who, their away form is pretty good and that they've only lost 1 game, but they're yet to win away from home. They've only won 1 game all season. That was home to the aforementioned Newport. As I say, I think there are issues there that run pretty deep right now at Swindon. The atmosphere at the club isn't particularly good. I think fans are getting frustrated at what they perceive to be just a general malaise there. And I think for Cheltenham Town fans, especially with there being, local rivalry is the wrong word, but they aren't far apart. A
local element.
Yeah, to it. It's an important game, and I think Cheltenham will see this as a game that they have to win in order to kind of kickstart their season. And I'm not saying Swindon won't, but if I am right and Cheltenham have the qualities to beat some of the poorer teams in the league, if Swindon are that, then this should be a game that they can get ahead of. So I would have them, significant favs for this one, and with home advantage, and they aren't that.
My next best is a double chance pick. It's Accrington at 6-5. That's 2.2 with AK Bet's best price. They're away at Gillingham. Now, these 2 teams are interesting to start the season. If you take the first 8 games, shall we, of both teams, you're looking at one side who picked up excellent results, didn't necessarily have the impressive underlying numbers to underpin those results, but picked up excellent results for 8 games. Then another team in Accrington who picked up really bad results, whose underlying numbers suggested that their level of performance, their competitiveness within games was much better than the pure results suggested. And since each team's ninth game, that has started to change a little bit. Accrington beat Morecambe, got their first win in the season, an important confidence-boosting win, finally holding on to a lead, having gone ahead in, 5 or 6 of their games so far, 5 this season. Whereas Gillingham's hot streak ended and they've lost their last 2 games to 0. With not a huge amount that leapt off the page on this docket, I am leaning a little bit on numbers here, and I think this is an interesting time of season to do that. In terms of non-penalty XG goal difference, if you look at the Opta Analyst site, which has XG numbers for League 2, Accrington's is plus 0.18 per game, and Gillingham's is minus 0.12 per game. So there's a difference of just under a third of a goal, or an expected goal, I should say, between the 2 teams in Accrington's favour. And you might say, well, that might be massaged by game state. Have Accrington been chasing games a lot due to their poor performances, and maybe Gills have been holding on to leads for a long period of time? It's not as big a difference as you might think. Accrington have been leading for 29% of their games, Gillingham for 39%, so there is a bit of a difference there. Gillingham trailing for 22.5% and Accrington for 27.5%. It's not quite as stark as you might think. Accrington have gone ahead in 5 of 9. Now, they've obviously struggled to see those games out, had a bit of a wobbly resolve, but I think one thing that's made a big difference is they dropped their goalkeeper, Michael Kelly, and in goal now is Billy Crellin. It's early days for Crellin, and I can't stand here and say, or sit here rather and say he's this incredible keeper for the level, but I'd be pretty confident that his shot stopping will be better than Kelly's, which has been an issue for them to start the season. Gills have this thing where they've gone behind 3 times, haven't found an equaliser yet, and that has not been a state that has that suited them necessarily. So I'm just wondering if Aki could catch them cold here and get in front with a front 3 of Mooney and then Costello and Worley supporting. They can cause problems. They did so against Morecambe last week. So I'm backing Accrington, and the draw is on our side as well at 6-5. My logic here is that the base performance level of these two teams is not as far apart as the league table would have you think, or as general League Two observers might think. And we might benefit if Accrington catch Gills out a little bit here, and if they have, if they can defend their lead a bit better than previous weeks, having got the monkey off their back last week. This is one that might look incredibly stupid by 5 p.m. on Saturday, but that's my play this weekend. Accrington, double chance, 6-5 against Gillingham.
Every single selection could look stupid.
That's true. But some, in advance, feel more susceptible to that.
Yeah, but you can always be like, they could lose 3-0, and I think the thinking is sound.
Yeah, okay. Well, for anyone looking to sign up to AK Bets, use the promo code NTT100. Just click on the link in the description or the show notes of the podcast, and that'll take you straight to the site with the promo code already applied. The sign-up offer is as follows. If your first bet is an accumulator on football with a minimum of 4 selections, AK Bets will boost any profit gained on that initial bet by 25% in the form of a free bet and up to a value of £100. So read the T's and C's accessible on the website to understand the offer specifics. But, for example, a fourfold of our NAPs and next bests would be 55 to 1 on site at the moment, their best price for all of our picks. And that would be eligible for this sign-up offer with code NTT100, for example. Who is your goal scorer pick?
Harry Clifton, who's 9-2 to score any time for Donny, who hosts Crewe. This is a really interesting matchup in my mind, where Donny come here off the back of 2 really good wins in a week. But Crewe are the side currently in League Two who've kind of turned it around, and now are looking very, very solid defensively, but have added a bit of attacking sparkle to what they're doing. But I still think that Doncaster at home would expect to cause Crewe some massive issues. And I think in Clifton you've got a player who is, he isn't one of those that's massively underperforming their expected goals. He scored 2 goals from 2.33 expected as per FOTMob, but he is consistently getting in goal scoring opportunities. He's often playing, like there was the game where he scored in the 1-0 win against Barrow, where if you look at the kind of average position chart, he's almost in like a front 2 with Billy Sharp. And I think the way that Sharp plays, because he is that focal point and attack, it kind of gives someone who's a bit more mobile, the likes of Clifton, to kind of run into that number 10 area when the space is there. His finishing ability is decent enough. I think he's being priced quite heavily on what we saw at Grimsby, where he played a very different role for a very different side. So yeah, a 9-2 for a player who last time we saw him, he had 3 shots against Barrow, had just a shot at Grimsby last time, but is very much playing as an attacking midfielder. I think 9-2 isn't reflective of the role he's playing for a side who will score a lot of goals this season.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the price of my goal scorer pick. It's Notts County's Alassana Jatta. He's their striker. He's their number 9. He's 11-4 to score anytime this weekend for Notts away at Chesterfield. I think to be getting 11-4 about Jatta is very, very attractive, very generous. This is a guy who, albeit it's a small sample size, the season is still young, has an XG per 90 number of 1.14 per Opta analyst, which won't last the whole season, but is also not entirely surprising for a striker that plays up front for Notts County. I often pick MK Don strikers or Notts County strikers. The way that these teams play, generally, when they do it well, creates high-value opportunities for their number 9s, and their number 9s have really good goal-scoring rates, whether it's Langstaff at Notts for the last 2 seasons, whether it's the MK strikers that we've talked about quite a lot over the last few seasons. Now it's Jatta who's playing up front for Notts. He played 90 minutes last week in their defeat against Port Vale. He had 7 shots and didn't score, but he had scored in his 5 previous appearances this season. He's actually underperforming his expected goals. If he was scoring in line with it, he'd have even more than he already did. Last season, he scored 5 in 500 minutes. So currently, Jatta, since joining in January in League 2, has 9 goals in 950 minutes at 0.81 per 90, with no penalties in there either. It's just ridiculous scoring rate, basically, for this level. Obviously, Chesterfield heavy favourites for this. That's why he's been pushed out in line with Notts' price. But Chesterfield haven't kept a clean sheet at home all season. I do think Chesterfield are a good team. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the game, but I see this game having quite a high goal probability and goal expectancy. And if so, you've got to go with a guy that's averaging 1.14 XG per 90 per Opta analyst. I just don't think you can ignore that at 11-4. Alassana Jatta is my goal scorer pick. What about a long shot?
My long shot is a 0-0 draw in Crawley against Shrewsbury at 11-1. A battle between two teams who are really struggling down at the bottom end of League One. I'm kind of amazed by the price for this. I mean, Crawley Town have had serious issues in front of goal this season, and have only scored 5 goals, and have scored the fewest goals in the league. Shrewsbury have only scored 8 goals, and yeah, sure, defensively the numbers from Shrewsbury aren't great, and that'll have a factor in this. But I always think when you've got two really bad attacking sides, that's normally the way that these games go. It's not like, they've got porous defences. The reason they've got porous defences is because they generally play against teams with really good attacking output, whereas this time around it's the opposite. I also think this is kind of one of those games. It's 21st against 22nd. It's a proper one where for both managers, for Paul Hurst and for Rob Elliott coming in at Crawley, it's just essential not to lose. Like, it's a game where you just cannot really afford to lose it and lose massive ground against a side who realistically is probably going to be in the bottom 6 with you come the end of the season. So, you know, I know Crawley, and I guess part of the reason why we're probably seeing a double figure price for this one is because Crawley are still seen as, you know, there'll be a lot of historical pricing into what they were last season into this game, but that's gone, and that was gone before Scott Lindsay had left. They are no longer that kind of free-flowing attacking side. They don't create too much themselves. For Shrews, you know, even they're scoring 2 at Bolton last week. One of those was an unbelievable strike from Jordan Shipley from 25 yards. It just feels like a real classic, neither side creating much, neither giving too much away. The kind of game that's normally 6-7-1 for a 0-0 draw, and we're getting 11-1.
Yeah. The most notable thing about Crawley for me at the moment is they're taking their average shot, so more than half of their shots is being taken from outside the box. They're really struggling to get inside the box. They've only had 3 shots inside the 6-yard box this season, which is the fewest in League One, and 53 of their 103 shots have come from outside the box, which as a proportion of your total shots is just ridiculous and suggests that they're just really struggling to create any chances for their striker at this point in time. I've also got a correct score. It's Barrow 1, Morecambe 0, 6-1. Not quite as juicy as your price here. Barrow are very short to win this game at home to Morecambe, who are obviously still winless this season. There's a bit of spice to this game, local-ish. And look, both of these teams are bottom 8 for goals per game so far this season. I think that it's a game that's unlikely to have a lot of goals scored. Both teams have seen 7 out of their 10 games go unders, so 70% unders between them so far. Barrow have the 4th lowest XG per 90 in attack. Morecambe the 6th lowest in terms of XG against. Thankfully for Barrow, they have the joint 2nd best defence in terms of XG against per 90, whereas Morecambe's defence is much leakier. They have the 3rd worst XG against number. So I am expecting Barrow to make the running here with home advantage. I'm expecting them to win. I'm not expecting this Barrow side to run rampant necessarily. I don't think that is something that happens very often. Last season at home, Barrow's games 70% went under 2.5 goals. Season before that, 61%. Season before that, 57%. I do believe that conditions on the peninsula play a role in low-scoring games. It is forecast to be wet and windy on the peninsula. This game last year was also played in October. Was Barrow 1, Morecambe 0. Barrow had 7 shots, 3 on target. Morecambe had 3 shots, none on target. That is in line with what I'm hoping for / expecting here. Barrow 1, Morecambe 0 is my long shot at 6-1. To finish off,
yes,
instead of putting together a joint multi for the weekend action, given that there's not many games, we thought we would take this opportunity to do some more long-term thinking when it comes to the outrights. Before we do, let's just check in on what we said in our pre-season outright preview. I think it's worth kind of updating how some of those are looking. You put up loads of selections on that show. Unsurprisingly, quite a few have lengthened, but quite a few have shortened as well. Leeds outright 3-1 into 7-5 when I looked yesterday. Sheffield United promotion 5-1 into 2-1. Stockport outright and promotion prices have come in since you picked them at 25-1 and 6-1. Lincoln top 6, 130 now into 5-2. Donny outright 9-1 each way is now 5-1. Fleetwood promotion 13-2, now 5-2. Your Bradford top 7 pick was 5-4, still 5-4. A couple that haven't gone so well. MK promotion has gone out. Swansea top 6 has gone out. Watford relegation has gone out. Stevenage relegation as well.
Basically should have left relegation bets to you, because that's where you're
Good point.
on fire.
Yeah, my relegation picks. Portsmouth at 6-1. Best price is now about even money. Shrewsbury at 5-4 is now about 3-1 on. Cheltenham relegation at 10-1 is now 4-1. But anything that wasn't a relegation pick from me doesn't look great. Coventry top 6, an outright terrible start. Charlton 5-1 promotion is now 8-1. I was a bit put out by this, and then I realised it's because Birmingham are so short to win. But I'm not that gutted with my 5-1 Charlton promotion pick.
They're winning again 8-1.
So 8-1 is interesting. And my Colchester stance doesn't look great at the moment. 33-1 outright is now 80-1 in League Two.
Well, the top 7's not really moved.
There you go, still a chance. What are you doing this week?
What do you mean?
What are we doing this week?
We
of this nature
are doing a match bet multi, which is quite fun. So if you go up on it, the AK Bets site, if you click on the individual leads on the outright, you can see that they have every single team factored into a match bet with prices priced into all of them, and you can put them in ACCAs as well. So definitely check that out. It's pretty unique for firms to offer that across the EFL, and I've come up with a 5-fold.
Nice
for us.
So we did this pre-season.
Yeah,
we had a 6-fold. There's a couple that aren't looking great. That was around 50-1. We got a 5-fold here, which is at 20-1.
Boosted to 20-1. You can find it in the specials section. So if you do back this, rather than build it yourself, look on the specials section and back it there, because I think it comes out at about 18.9-1 if you do the ACCA. So the guys at AK Bets have boosted it out. 2 in the Championship. 1 that I think is the NAP, and that is Coventry at 5-6 versus Watford, which is like a proper overreaction to quite a short amount of football, I would say. Where I still think, as we spoke about on Monday's show, I think Coventry, there's no need to panic. Things will right themselves, even if nothing really changes. Watford are one of the biggest data outliers in the league right now. I'm by no means saying that they should be embroiled in a relegation battle, as I said. But their defensive numbers in particular are really, really poor, with every team against them managing to create loads. I kind of think their game on Saturday was a bit of a season in a nutshell, where Barrow were dominant for the most part, were 1-0 up, and then in the last 10 minutes, Watford managed to be clinical in the final third and score 2 goals and win the game 2-1. I personally don't think Watford are going to be able to maintain what they're doing right now. I would think that Watford are likely to finish in the bottom 8, and I think Coventry will finish in the top 12. I would have that way shorter than 5-6. Norwich Blackburn. Blackburn made a great start to the season. I still think they're a very good side under John Eustace, but I think Norwich could well be a top 6 side, and I think that some of the prices around for them to finish in the top 6 are too big. And this is we're getting them at the perfect time now. I think before, it could be very, very, it could be not long at all until Norwich are properly put in that set of teams above them who are all odds on for top 6 now. I don't think there's anything in terms of quality between them. I think we're only getting a bigger price about Norwich because of their very poor start to the season, which is understandable when you consider the new manager and when you consider the departure of Gabriel Sara, when you consider that John Rowe went on strike on the morning of the first game and then went to Marseille. And they are very, very quickly improving week on week, and this is the time to catch them. Blackpool over Wickham. Spoken about Blackpool loads and how it looks like their good form is sustainable. With Wickham, a huge fan of what Matt Bloomfield's doing there, but just a team that to me are probably running a little bit hot. They had to score 2 goals a game in every single game in order to rack up their points tally until just the 1-0 win last Saturday. But I think they'll be absolutely fine, and they could well challenge for the top 7. But this is a match bet between 2 sides, one of whom I think will be in the top 6 and one who I think will be unlikely to be. Maybe one that will surprise a few people is Cambridge over Shrews. Cambridge, the outsiders here, Shrewsbury 8-13. I think that's strange. We're very early in the season. There's only 4 points separating them now, which is basically nothing. It's a Saturday, or a Saturday and a Tuesday. Cambridge, one of the big data outliers in the whole league right now, where their underlying numbers are nowhere near as bad as being on 1 point, albeit game state will play a part in that because they haven't been ahead yet in a game. But I think they've got enough about them to turn that around relatively quickly. I'm pretty confident that Shrews will be involved in the relegation scrap at the end of the season. I'm sure Cambridge will be too, but just at the prices, the 8-13 is way too short about Shrewsbury, so getting with Cambridge odds against. And finally, Bradford over Crewe. You spoke about Bradford eloquently a second ago.
Thanks.
I think they're a really good side. You mentioned I put them up top 7 before the season started at 5-4. They're still that price. I would definitely be a backer of that rather than a layer. Against a Crewe side who, you know, as I said, massive credit to Lee Bell for improving them, because early in the season they were very poor. But I'm still, Crewe fans will be really surprised to hear. I'm not quite buying into it at this stage yet. I think, you know, defensively they're fine, and I'm sure they will be mid-table or there or thereabouts. But I think Bradford are a side who could, you know, their ceiling is much higher. They could be anything still in League Two, whereas I'm not sure that's the case with Crewe.
Nicely done. So there is a season points match bet for every single team in the EFL currently on the AK Bets website. If you go to football and then outrights, we have put together a 5-fold at 20-1, which has been packaged up and is available to back on the specials section of the site. It is Coventry over Watford, Norwich over Blackburn, Blackpool over Wickham, Cambridge over Shrewsbury, and Bradford over Crewe. All that's left, George, is for you to recap your personal selections for this week.
Yeah, sure. My NAP is Newport to go to Harrogate and win at 5-2. It'd be handy to get that one in, wouldn't it? Cheltenham at home, 17-10 at home to Swindon is my next best. My goal scorer is Harry Clifton of Doncaster to score at any time at 9-2. And Crawley to draw 0-0 at home to Shrewsbury at 11-1. All of those best prices you'll find anywhere in the market with AK Bets, and they hold them for a bit as well. So do make sure you sign up with AK Bets, either for those, or as we say, if you like the match bet ACCA, you can find that under specials too.
Best bet, Bradford 17-10. Accrington double chance at Gills 6-5, my next best. Alassane Jatta of Notts County to score anytime at 11-4. And Barrow to beat Morecambe 1-0 at 6-1. All top price as we record. Thank you for listening. Thanks to AK Bets for sponsoring this show. Have a great weekend and go well.